28th of August, it was announced that the U.S. State Department had approved a potential deal to sell Ukraine ERAM air-launched guided missiles and related equipment valued at $825 million. Ukraine requested up to 3,350 guided missiles and an equal number of navigation systems with anti-jamming features. On the 28th of August, it was announced that the U.S. State Department had approved a potential deal to sell Ukraine ERAM air-launched guided missiles and related equipment valued at $825 million. Ukraine requested up to 3,350 guided missiles and an equal number of navigation systems with anti-jamming features. What do you think is the real motive? The official rationale cited is to strengthen Ukraine's self-defense capabilities and regional security. But one might ask, how does this align with claims about promoting peace, pursuing political and diplomatic solutions, resolving the conflict, and reducing the risk of escalation? More than 3 years have passed since the staging of the alleged mass killing of local residents by Russian servicemen in the town of Bucha in the Kyiv region, as reported by Western media. You will recall how the Kyiv regime, with the backing of its Western sponsors, hastily fabricated this implausible story. We have repeatedly exposed those behind this falsification, refuting the accusations against Moscow in detail and with well-grounded arguments. At the same time, Russian investigative authorities have opened a criminal case to establish the circumstances of what happened and to determine what actually took place. Aware that the Zelensky regime will not reveal its own bloody provocation, we repeatedly appealed to the UN Secretary-General and to the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, an Austrian national, requesting assistance in obtaining the data necessary for the investigation. In September 2024, via the Russian Permanent Mission in New York, a request prepared by the Investigative Committee in cooperation with the Prosecutor General's Office was submitted to the UN, seeking available information on the matter. The UN Secretariat, however, sought for a long time to drag out our appeal. Despite our repeated reminders, appeals, and requests to expedite a response, the petition received no meaningful reaction. Any replies we did receive contained neither specifics nor substantive information. It was only in July of this year, I remind you, the request was submitted on the 24th of September, and the reply came on the 25th of July, almost a year later, that the Permanent Mission in New York received a response from the UN Secretariat's Legal Affairs Department, but this response was scarcely worth the paper it was written on. It's simply impossible to describe this document as anything other than a standard form letter. The UN's argument was simple. The Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights had allegedly reviewed our request and concluded that the relevant information could not be disclosed. Why? According to their explanation, disclosure would violate confidentiality obligations to third parties and, supposedly, jeopardize the security of the UN's operations, even, they implied, in terms of personal data or personal information. This, among other things, entails the gradual easing of contacts between the peoples of the two countries, which will undoubtedly be helped by China's unilateral decision to introduce visa-free entry, on a trial basis, for certain categories of Russian citizens. We sincerely thank our Chinese friends for this step, which is warmly welcomed by all Russians and especially by residents of the Far East. The fact that this measure was announced during President Vladimir Putin's visit to China, in my view, makes the already landmark outcomes of the Russian-Chinese summit even more significant. It should be noted, however, that the measure remains temporary and experimental, although the mechanism for its implementation has already been well tested by Beijing as part of its broader policy of granting similar preferences to 47 other countries. Its impact on bilateral relations with China will need to be carefully assessed, but we would be pleased if visa-free travel were to become a lasting arrangement. Our diplomats are, of course, in constant contact with law enforcement agencies and the relatives of those detained. At the request of some of our citizens, we are also providing financial support for legal representation. Consular officials have made 3 visits to Russian citizens held at the Bucha detention center on the 14th and the 23rd of July. A request for a 4th visit has been submitted, though Azerbaijani authorities have not yet approved it. We expect such permission will be granted. On the 2nd of July, we also sought information regarding the detainees' health and the medical care available to them. Regrettably, no response has yet been received, but we trust it will follow in due course. At present, the detainees are permitted weekly visits from close relatives, lasting up to 1 hour, and may receive parcels and letters through their lawyers. However, phone calls from the Bucha detention center are not permitted. We stress that the release of Russian citizens would represent an important step towards normalizing relations between Russia and Azerbaijan.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले.
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that we will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest newsmakers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry guards.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.